Is Bitcoin a Ponzi scheme? Yes or no? How does this apply to altcoins? What are my thoughts on this, and what are the criteria? And if Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme, how can we fix it? Hey and welcome to today's video. My name is Julian. On my channel, it's all about making you crypto fit, and this video actually fits perfectly into this entire series. I actually haven't done a lot of these crypto fit videos in a long time. Mostly it's been market updates or stuff that's just happening. But yeah, I thought let's go back to the roots. I don't know, like 6, 7 years ago, maybe even longer, 2016, 7 years ago, where I talked about the fundamentals in crypto. And I think a lot of people, especially in the post 2018 kind of era, kind of forgot about all those fundamentals, and it shows. And I think it's good to kind of turn back the clock and uncover those fundamentals again a bit to give a bit of a better understanding and kind of show what we really need to focus on in all of this. So, yeah, I know that the headline may be a bit triggering for some, so let's see how this is going to go, but you will see it's actually going to have a positive turn. Look, full disclosure, my entire organization, Cake Group, their balance sheet, the crypto is mainly in Bitcoin. I have a small position right now in Bitcoin. I used to have a really, really large position until the end of 2021, sold that position at that point. So, look, I know this is a bit of a catchy headline. There is truth to the headline, don't worry, but it's all gonna come to a positive end. So let's do a bit of a screen share and a bit of a mix in all of that. And well, let me maybe move away my video. Let's see, is that gonna work or not? Okay, great. So as the CEO of the Cake Group, I guess a question I really get a lot is, hey, like I would love to invest in Bitcoin, but I read in the news that that is a Ponzi scheme. Is it or is it not? And most people that you ask this question are actually gonna give you one of those really kind of like low IQ, kind of no brain, like brainless answers. So they're gonna say they're either gonna ad hominem attack you right away. They say, "Hey, look, like you have no fucking clue. Like you clearly haven't understood Bitcoin. You need to understand Bitcoin even longer." And I even get this. And look, I learned about Bitcoin almost 9 years ago now. I'm doing videos for the last 7, 8 years. I understand Bitcoin better than probably 99.99999% of the people. And the key thing is, you need to understand, just like in good chess, right? You need to understand your chess position. If you don't understand your chess position, you're going to lose. And it's the same thing here. So we need to understand our Bitcoin position, and then we can win. So yeah, or people say, hey, don't listen to this person. That person is just a scammer. That person just wants to shill his shit coin. No, Bitcoin is not a Ponzi scheme. It's actually the best money. How can it be a Ponzi scheme? It's been around for 15 years. It would have either collapsed already, or it would be prosecuted. If Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme, gold is one as well. Who cares? Fiat is also a Ponzi scheme. So look, I'm not going to go and argue on this very low kind of point here. I'm going to go to the very top here. I refute explicitly the central point. The problem though is a bit that I'm going to come to the conclusion that parts of Bitcoin are going to be a Ponzi scheme unless we fix it. And there are ways to fix it. So before we actually talk about how to fix it, let's first discuss what a Ponzi scheme actually is. Well, famous Charles Ponzi kind of started this with this scheme. The idea behind it is, instead of accepting money and using that money to drive business profits, you use that money to pay out other investors, thereby faking returns. Now, inevitably, because you're taking in less money that you're paying out, that thing collapses and people lose. The key thing to understand in a Ponzi scheme is that it's always a zero-sum game, meaning for every dollar that someone wins, there are other dollars that people lose. And that's really, really crucial to understand in this. In a proper business, this is the exact opposite. In a proper business, obviously everyone can lose, sure, if the business doesn't work, but it can also work out that everyone wins, right? If the business is profitable. Like you look at Apple right now, right? Everyone is making money in Apple, and there's no one that loses money. Why? Because the business is doing well. It doesn't require someone to lose money for someone else to win money. Now, if we use a non-business, sometimes it gets a bit trickier because let's say we use oil or gold. If you buy oil from someone, well, that person now has your money and you don't have that money anymore. So the only way how you can get back that money by finding someone else who buys that oil off of you. Now imagine there is no one who wants to buy oil anymore. Why? Because we're not having a Ponzi scheme, and a Ponzi scheme relies on new investments. So let's imagine there's no one who wants to buy that thing from you. Well, you could still use that oil. And that's the key thing, right? So you can use that oil in your car, and the car doesn't care about the price. So the price is a fundamental thing when it comes to Ponzi schemes. If something depends on the price of something, it's very, very tricky. If it doesn't require a price, so like a stock doesn't require a price and it is still valuable. Oil, even if you have no price for oil, like you're on an island, right? You have oil there. There's something you can do with this. Even for gold, and a lot of people always say gold has no utility, but actually gold has very strong utility. You need it for a lot of industrial use and also for jewelry. I mean, otherwise, I mean, look, I'll gladly take your gold, and even if I promise I'll never sell it, I don't know. I can always like, I don't know. It can always be some nice jewelry, right? So look, it's very, very easy to kind of accept that or really explain that. Now with Bitcoin, this is a humongous difference because Bitcoin only exists in the digital world. And that's important. That is a strength, but it's a main weakness because it's very difficult for Bitcoin to actually being used. Now, I know that people sometimes say, oh, but it's being used for payments. That's actually not true. It's converted, and it's really important what the price is at that conversion. But if you don't have a price, then there is no utility. The same is for if you are in developing countries. A lot of people say, well, but in developing countries, it's an inflation hedge. No, it's just an access to the US dollar, and it depends on the US dollar price, right? So if Bitcoin were to drop in price, it would lose all its utility. Where, let's say gold or oil, if the oil price dips to 1% of today's price, right? No one would care who just uses oil, like all the investors would care, but no one who needs oil, actually uses oil, would care. The same for gold, right? If gold were to drop by like 99%, people would be like, yeah, great. Now I can buy all the jewelry and all the stuff in the world that I always wanted to own for 1% the price. Rare earth and so on, right? So it's the same thing. But for Bitcoin, price is everything. And so why is this important? Well, I don't know if you know this saying, there's this WAGMI, like we're all gonna make it, but it's actually not true. In Bitcoin, it is impossible right now for everyone to make it. There will always be losers, always, right? Well, very simple. If you sell your Bitcoins to someone, well, you get the money, you have this person's money, and the only way this person can ever get that money back is by that person also finding someone to sell those Bitcoins to. And the key thing is, it's just because Bitcoin is really lacking that utility. Even when people say, but with Lightning, we have these payments ideas where you can transfer other things and you buy and sell those things. Sure, I get it that this is not really dependent on the price because you go in and out at the same time. But to be honest, that's completely centralized, even in a way more efficient manner. And I'm not sure Bitcoin is going to be the use case there. I do see some utility there, so I agree, but that's a really key one. And the last one, as a pure kind of insurance, long term, this is one of the reasons I actually own Bitcoin. I just really think with the institutionalization, Wall Street and everything, that's going to get a bit more tricky. I want to be honest. So I'm not sure this is going to be the main utility going forward. Now, this is a major difference for many smart contract platforms. Smart contract platforms like Ethereum, DeFi chain, Solana, Polkadot, and so on, they have native utility in the chain, something Bitcoin absolutely doesn't have. And this is a major, major strength here, right? You can use these coins as collateral. You can use them for consensus. You can use them for voting. You can use them for tokenization. You can use them for decentralized exchanges. You can use them for gas fees. And I mean, that is the entire reason why my number one favorite blockchain right now, Ethereum, is actually so strong, because it's actually deflationary, because you burn so much ETH for all the value that you create from this. And it's extremely powerful. I mean, it's a key question. Look, I have 3 core positions in my portfolio. One is Ethereum, one is DeFi chain, one is Bitcoin. I think DeFi chain has the largest upside. It still has the biggest risk. I think risk reward right now, Ethereum is the big winner. To me, Bitcoin right now is a bit of a bet that we're going to see a Bitcoin spot ETF in 6 months or something, right? So these are kind of the 3 bets that I have going right now. And okay, so if we can now understand that, right, then we do have to admit a bit that Bitcoin does have some Ponzi style kind of characteristics. And so if people really struggle kind of answering that, then they're just intellectually dishonest. I mean, even if they say, look, it's been around for 15 years. So what? Well, Bernie Madoff's scheme was around for 20 years and would have probably lasted even longer. So I think that's really important. One note here, fiat money, it's a Ponzi scheme. Yes, and I completely agree with you. It is a Ponzi scheme, but it lasts because the government says so. It's the name. It shall be fiat, right? And this also explains why the US has been fighting every single war over the past 20 years. It's about supporting the US dollar. And I think that's really, really, really crucial. Now, if before we go into the solutions, it actually shows really well right now on what's happening. So when I made this tweet on Twitter and I posted this entire article, no other responses came other than those responses, right? And that kind of shows it's because people have no answer. The reason they answer this way is because they don't have any idea how to actually answer. Some people know this is a problem and then just willingly do so. There's actually a good article from Lynn Alden who's trying to kind of refute that, but she goes more into the Satoshi kind of times and doesn't really talk about the lack of utility in there. She actually tries to do it in a very reasonable manner, but most people just don't. Then what most people do, instead of actually driving utility, and that's the key thing, they go and talk about past performance and say, hey, look at what it did in the past. That's what's going to happen in the future. When everyone knows past performance says nothing about the future. And actually, that's why the majority of Bitcoins are in minus right now. Even Michael Saylor is minus. Speaking of Michael Saylor, Ponzi schemes love to pick those people and kind of put them on a pedestal and kind of tell people, look how amazing, look at this person's investing, so you should be investing as well, which makes zero sense. Like, this argument makes no sense. Then making fake models that kind of predict the price, that makes no sense. And again, I want to say I'm super optimistic about Bitcoin, but this drives me insane when I see those lies all the time. Now, when people like say that like this all doesn't matter, let's go and buy some Bitcoin. Oh, I'm never gonna sell. Well, there's actually nothing else than exactly the argument. The only thing that matters is more money entering the system and no existing money leaving the system. There's nothing that you can do in Bitcoin right now to actually not need new money for the value to increase. And that's, in my opinion, a bit of an issue. Politicians, same thing. Questionable politicians. They're being used as like the kind of promoters, and I think that's a bit dodgy. El Salvador, nothing there around Bitcoin was done, and people kind of use it as a marketing scheme. The institutional adoption with the Bitcoin spot ETFs, to me, actually, that's a bit of a risk factor more than it's gonna help. So I want to be very clear. Governments mining Bitcoin, I'm a bit like wary of that as well. Why? Because actually they're selling Bitcoin. It's a pure fiat transaction. And then people just coming in and giving like weird arguments, it's not going to really help the cause. It's just going to make like do what I actually expect it to do, which is nothing. So what can we do to fix this? And I think that's really important. And it all comes down to one thing, and that is utility. We need to drive utility on Bitcoin. And now, I actually, with our company, with K Group, we do this in certain areas. For example, we invest in ordinals. We invest in ordinal protocols. We invest in ordinal systems to really help and drive utility on top. Sadly, OmniLayer was basically completely discontinued. That's a pity. USDT, like that would be so great to still have it on Bitcoin, but it moved away, it moved to Tron. Taproot would open this up. Now, there's an entire topic. I think it's Bitcoin Improvement Proposal 300, if I'm correct. Drive chains would be so powerful, and this entire thing is like really being attacked at the moment. Now, projects like Stacks, DeFi Chain. I'm also involved in DeFi Chain. We're also investing. We're supporting there. They try to wrap Bitcoin, work around Bitcoin, help bring utility to Bitcoin. And at the end, actually wrapping Bitcoin and bringing it to other smart contract platforms is useful. However, obviously, it makes these Bitcoins centralized. But at least there is utility there, and that is so crucial. So we just need to see more building around this, and not just payment companies. But this is what everyone is doing, and this is what everyone is talking about. But actually, it drives zero utility. So that is really key. I'm actually hopeful. We're seeing a lot of initiatives in this direction. And I think one of the next waves that we're going to see actually in crypto, especially for Bitcoin, is going to come out of that. And that makes me bullish. Why are people opposing this? I mean, this makes so much sense. Why are they opposing this? Well, very simple. I think a lot of the Bitcoin kind of old schoolers understand that Bitcoin is more of a Ponzi scheme, and they understand complexity is the enemy of execution. So they're gonna keep it simple. By keeping it simple, the message is easier. They have like all these easy answers to everything, and it just kind of makes the gospel going, and it attracts more money, right? And so like stacking sats, or oh, lightning is gonna solve this, or but it's gonna be the world currency, and so on. So like, you know, in the past it was like but stock to flow, and it's oh but next cycle, but halving. And it's not any fundamental stuff. And I think that's a key thing. And obviously, the more of these things you bring in, the more complicated it's going to be. And look, sadly, follow the money. Blockstream has, and they're the main company behind Bitcoin. They are completely disincentivized to support anything else other than what they are working on. And you can see this. And this is a massive, massive issue. So it's, I don't know, it's something that I struggle sometimes a bit with. But I really believe that we can make Bitcoin great again, and we can make it useful, and we can all make it. And at the end, that's what excites me. And that's why I personally hold some Bitcoins, why our company invests in Bitcoin, and why I do believe, like, this has to be the core belief, right? That Bitcoin is becoming useful. And if you believe this, then I completely understand why you're stacking sats. I completely understand why you are supporting this entire movement. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And obviously, if you want to buy Bitcoin, if you want to get cash flow on top of this, then head over to bix.io, check this out. Let us pay you cash flow on top of it. That's going to help. And I think this will be very interesting. So I hope this is useful to you. I hope this explains a lot of these thoughts. There is stuff to do. That's also good. And with this, if you leave me a follow, I appreciate this. See you next time. Yours truly, Julian. Bye-bye.